pattern is going to be the Grizzly King. It's a great streamer pattern. A lot of fun to tie to. I've got a size 10 extra long hook in my vise, and I'm just using some sheer 14-aught thread in black. Just going to go ahead and get ourselves a nice thread base going on that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and take the thread down to where I want the abdomen on this fly to start. And that'll be right where the barb of the hook is. I will mash that barb down before I ever fish this. But it is a good, sometimes, reference point for where you want your abdomen to start. Looks like it's about right in there. Give myself a little bit of extra thread, and we'll wander our thread up just a little bit here. So first we're going to tie in a couple of tails, and I'm using some duck quill here. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball it for the length that I like them. I'm going to hold that against the side of the hook, and we're going to take a loose wrap around it once, and I'm going to pull it straight up to try to keep that kind of nicely in place. I'm going to go ahead and take a few thread wraps to secure that where I want it. I'm going to take my matching one. I'm using matching quills here, and I'm going to try to get this the same length as that first one. I'm going to kind of hold that in place just like we did the first one. Take a loose wrap over the top, and I'm going to cinch it down as I'm coming up. And what that's going to do is give us a nice little tent kind of tail where those two chunks of duck quill are kind of coming together and meeting each other. Now, this fly is not going to have much taper to it at all, but because I've tied in a little bulk back here when I tied those in, I'm going to go ahead and use what's left of these duck quills to give me some extra bulk here. And next we're going to rib this one with some silver tinsel. This is like 16-18 size, very small. If I want the silver side on the outside, then I'm going to tie this on my side of the hook with the gold side facing me, facing out. So the silver side right now is right up against the hook shank. And you'll see as we rib this that by doing that, when we start our rib moving up the fly here, that silver is what we're going to see in terms of our ribbing, and that's what we're looking for. So we're going to take this back to where our abdomen's going to start. Get it out of our way a little bit. We'll kind of move up. Continuing to work on kind of building up this section a little bit because we've got kind of a reverse taper going because we've tied so many materials here in the back. I don't want to crowd the eye per se. We're going to have a soft hackle and a wing up there. So next I'm going to tie in some olive colored floss, and that floss is going to become the body of our fly. So I'm going to tie that in just on the top of the hook there. I'll take a few wraps of it backwards, and then I'll just pull it backwards until I get it to about the length that I want it, so I don't need to cut it off. And then we're going to, just like the other material, we want this secured back to where our abdomen is going to start. And then I can move forward and we'll work on capturing that. If I can be kind of careful enough with my thread wraps, I can just kind of catch that. I have a little bit of a fuzziness there, but that's okay because we're going to be tying a nice soft hackle over the top of that. That's the vicinity where that's going to happen. So from here, I'm just going to kind of turn my thread counterclockwise just to flatten it out a little bit. I've turned my hook a little bit, probably went out of focus, just so that I can look at the taper, see how it's looking, where I need to build up. I'm going to grab hold of the floss. That's going to be the first material that we're going to tie up our hook shank here. Let's try to get a good wrap around the back here, cover up as much of that black as we can. Then I'm just going to take some overlapping wraps with this floss moving up forward. I'll pull it pretty tight. It just helps keep that floss from spreading out as much because it comes in strands, and those strands tend to like to separate from one another. Make sure your hook is firmly in your vise. Keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. If you don't have your hook tight in the vise at this point, that's you'll find that out really quick. So I've got that up. I've got a nice kind of shimmering body of olive there. I'm going to go ahead and turn my vise sideways here so you can't see anything, and I'm going to go ahead and snip this off. That's enough for me to make some more flies. I'm just going to go ahead and come back to where I want to tie off my next material. So next we're going to go with our silver, and you note hopefully that as we start working up open wraps up the body here, that the silver side is the side that's facing out. And similar to the floss, I'm going to put some level of pressure on this material because I want it to hold down nice and tight. And being tinsel, it's Mallard, and it's pretty damn strong. So I'm trying to look at how even or uneven I'm being here. And we're not being very even. And if you let go, you're going to see that. Yeah. Nothing like going in reverse a little bit. I did that completely on purpose so that you could see that you can recover from that kind of a thing. And if you believe that, well, you know the rest. We'll go ahead and secure that tinsel down now. So we've got a really nice looking fly here. Now we've got the nice silver rib over the olive body and our nice duck quill tails kind of poking out there in the back. So the next thing that we're going to do, and this is why it's called the Grizzly King, is I'm going to use a Grizzly Hackle hen saddle feather here as kind of a soft hackle. So sometimes I'll use my my hackle pliers for this, but I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to stroke some of those fibers backwards. Those ones that are going backwards right now, they're going to be our soft hackle on this fly. So I want them to be somewhat even from side to side. They don't have to be perfect. Then I'm going to lick, let's just say, I'm going to wet my fingers, and I'm going to take the front of this, and I'm going to just cut out right close to that spot that we started. And that's going to give us a nice little tie-in point. So that's about where I want my soft hackle to start. So I'm going to go ahead and take a wrap or two to secure that down. And that tie-in point was a little bit longer than I wanted, so I can just come on in here with my scissors and clean that up so I don't have so much of it sticking out there. Okay, so this time I am going to grab my hackle pliers. I'm going to just grab the back end of this saddle hackle, this Grizzly saddle hackle that we got. I'm going to try to hold that up and have it turning so I can stroke those fibers backwards. And I'll just wet my fingers. And work on stroking as many of those fibers back as we can. We'll take a wrap around. We'll come back up and we'll stroke those fibers back again. And I do have some escapees, but that's okay, we'll deal with those. We'll probably just take one more turn here. But every time I come to the top here, note that I'm kind of stroking even the ones that have already been tied in. You want one of these wraps right in front of the other one, otherwise you're going to be trapping everything together, and that's not what we're looking to do here. But what I am looking to do here is to tie this off, and so I'm just throwing a few thread wraps over the stem of this hackle feather. And with that I can release it from my pliers. I can just come right in. I want to clip that stem off as close as I can to where it's tied. So there we go. So what I'll do usually here is I'll go ahead and stroke those fibers back with my fingers. Then I'm going to go ahead and tie backwards over the top of them, and that will help the ones that were sticking out a little bit get trapped, but it'll also serve us by getting that soft hackle pointing a little bit better backwards. Just about like that. So we're in good shape. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to put a wing across the top here. You can use a Mallard flank. In this case, I'm using a Teal flank, just something with some nice barring on it and some pretty long fibers on it. I'm going to go ahead and cut a few of those fibers off, and we're going to have just kind of a nice bushy little wing here that I want to extend about halfway down the length of those tails. So that's where I'm going to have my measure. I'm going to hold that in a pinch wrap because I want it to stay on the top. Go ahead and secure that with a wrap or two going backwards, just so we have that nice wing, not tail, but wing sticking over the top of our fly here. With that, I should be able to come in and use my scissors, and we'll cut off those butt ends. Clean that up a little bit. Okay, so those butt ends are now showing. I'm going to take a few wraps here right behind the eye, just to kind of build up a small little head. Doesn't need to be gigantic, but I do want to cover up those butt ends of the teal wing that we just put in place. That's starting to look pretty good. And for a head, you want it to taper smaller from the eye, getting thicker as you go back. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple thread wraps back here just to begin building that up a little bit. I'm going to whip finish, and that's going to give me a little bit more on the base here. About like that. I don't need that head any bigger. I'm going to come in with the back end of my whip finisher, which is a cutting tool, which cuts that thread off really nice and tight right up against it. So there you have it. Great pattern, great streamer pattern. It is the Grizzly King. Throw a hook in your vise and give it a shot.